Saint Lucian, mama, that's the land of my birth.
So, bonjour tout le monde. Jodi a c'est vendredi. Et 10h à bon matin. Et puis temps pour Rum Shop Talks. So, I promised you guys a couple of Rum Shop Talk episodes ago that I was going to teach you Creole. And I started off with bonjour, and I have been starting with bonjour tout le monde for the last couple of episodes. So by now you guys should know that bonjour tout le monde means good morning everyone. And so let me break down what the rest of what I said. So bonjour tout le monde, good morning everyone. Jodi a c'est vendredi. Today is Friday. Et puis temps pour Rum Shop Talks, and it is time for Rum Shop Talks. And so for today's Rum Shop Talk culture piece, I wanted to do something real quick for you guys as it is getting warm. People are, and I have to say around here there's like an abundance of citrus, and so I figured I would teach you guys how to make what we call squash or limeade in St. Lucia. It's super easy. You just need a citrus of your choice, water, sugar, and some kind of an extract. I'm using vanilla today, but you can use whatever you've got in your fridge. So we're gonna get started. Hey Sarah, usually I like to get everything prepared for you guys, but I figured I'd do something a little bit different today. So we will be making the drink while I talk to you guys about our legal topic. And I spent this week and the last week prepping for a webinar that I just presented to yesterday. So I figured that I was gonna try to be light on the legal and talk to you guys about celebrities. And I picked 4 different celebrities. 2 of them had estate plans, 2 of them did not have estate plans. Bonjour John. Hey Kiki. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at some of the complications that occurred in the lives of the ones with estate plans versus the ones without estate plans, and how, if I was the estate planner, what I would have done differently. And disclaimer here, we never know how our estate plans are going to play out. When we create estate plans, we create them for the now. It is what somebody's life looks like now, which means that as their life changes, the estate plan that you created could end up having unforeseen implications when that person passes away. So I'm not gonna try to pretend as if I could have done anything differently than what the attorneys did for our artists. I'm just saying that with hindsight, because we are human beings and we love to do that with hindsight, here's some of the things that could have been done differently to avoid the situations that occurred. So we're gonna jump into our squash, and while we're making it, I will be sharing our legal tip. So I'm gonna grab my water here. I've got about like 4 cups of water in here, give or take. And I've got a bowl of citrus. I've got me some limes, as well as it's about 3 lemons. So I've got about 6 of them here, and I will get started. So the celebrities that I picked for our presentation today, we have Kobe Bryant, because he's the most recent celebrity that passed away. I also picked Aretha Franklin, Robin Williams, and Prince. And you always think that celebrities have got it together, right? They must have, because they've got, like, you know, and I'm just gonna squeeze my lemons into the water. And you assume that they've got their stuff together because they've got, you know, they're surrounded by lawyers, and if you've got that many lawyers, like, you know, you cannot be doing things wrong. Well, like I said, 2 of our celebrities did not have estate plans, Aretha Franklin and Prince. And so they both passed away without leaving any instructions around for their families. And Kobe Bryant and Robin Williams did have estate plans. So let's start with our non-estate planning artist, and then we'll talk about our estate plan artist. So Aretha Franklin, she passed away a couple of years ago, had a couple of kids. Hey Matt, buenos dias. Bonjour, bonjour. And when she passed away was when her family thought she had actually done some, like, you know, had some estate planning. They realized that she did not have anything. And so when someone dies without an estate plan, their estate has to go through probate, which is a court administered process. Every state has its own probate code. And so based on the state that you're living in at the time of your demise will determine the probate code, the law that is applicable to your estate. So Aretha Franklin passed away in Michigan, and so Michigan's law, probate law, controlled. So what we found out as her estate was being probated is that one of her children, hey Linda, good morning, had special needs. And so that adds a different kind of complication to it. So when you're doing a probate and we get to the point of distribution, often enough it's an outright distribution that you're creating, you're doing, which means the person is getting their money not outside of a trust, and he or she can do whatever he or she wants to do with it. Of course, you can petition the court to allow the creation of what we call a testamentary trust, meaning like a trust after someone has passed away. Happy Friday. But I'm here to talk about, you know, what we could do better or different. So here's what Aretha Franklin, if she had done any estate planning, could have done. She could have created a special needs trust for her special needs son. And what a special needs trust does is that it protects the inheritance of someone with special needs from being included in the estate. You know, for a lot of those people with special needs, they are receiving some kind of need-based aid from the state. And when you inherit property outright, that inheritance will count against you. So we create a special needs trust and we put it in a protected place where that person can continue to receive his or her aids. Thank you. That person can continue to receive his or her state need-based aid. And when we talk about need-based aid, we're not only talking about Medicaid or food stamps. We're also talking about adult care services. You know, for a lot of those special needs people, they benefit from those services, and you don't want to cut them off from it. Also, you have no idea how long someone will live. You know, we are living older and older nowadays with the advance of technology. So we want to make sure that if someone inherits money, that money can continue to be around for them throughout their life. And for any of you guys who are familiar with how expensive care can be, the prices can certainly go up. So creating a special needs trust for someone with special needs is a fantastic way to ensure that that person's inheritance can continue to be around for their lifetime, while also allowing that person to continue to benefit from any need-based aid that they were receiving. So if I were Aretha Franklin's attorney, that would have been what I would have recommended, in addition to creating an estate plan and making sure that we also take into account tax planning. So the estate exemption in the federal estate exemption, California doesn't have an exemption, is $11.2 million for an individual. So for celebrities like Aretha Franklin, the estates usually far exceed that $11 million exemption, which means they're gonna have to be paying estate taxes. So if I were her attorney, we would be doing not only special needs planning for her son, but also making sure that we have some tax planning in there to lessen or completely eliminate the estate tax. All right, we're gonna hop on to celebrity. Man, I'm like still squeezing citrus, you guys. We're gonna hop on to celebrity number 2, and that is Prince. So a couple of years ago when Prince passed away, same kind of deal as Aretha Franklin. He did not have an estate plan. And what ended up happening, and he didn't have any kids either, so what ended up happening were relatives were coming out of the woodwork, you know. I'm his kid. There was even like a story about this guy that was in jail who said that he was Prince's like estranged son. And when someone pops in and says that they're the kid of a deceased person, you have to investigate that to make sure that it's legit, or to be able to refute and say it's not. Right? So what does that do to an estate? It takes up the estate's time and also takes up the estate's resources trying to disprove. If you've got 10 people coming up and saying, I'm a kid and I should be entitled to inheritance, you have to investigate 10 different people. So if I were Prince's attorney, similar to Aretha, I would have made sure that there was some tax planning, because what we saw happen with Prince and a lot of other celebrities out there is that their estates end up being more valuable after they've passed away. And so you want to make sure, hey Alma, welcome. You want to make sure that you are including some tax planning into a celebrity or artist estate plan to minimize any tax estate taxes that may be due. So we'd be doing that, and also naming the beneficiaries that he would have wanted to inherit his estate from. And what naming a beneficiary does is that, especially if a beneficiary isn't named in an estate, and you put language in there that says that anyone that you did not name is disinherited, meaning that they cannot, that you're purposely not including them in your estate, it helps squash a lot of those unfounded claims that were coming in. And so for Prince, we would have made sure that we named beneficiaries for him, as well as institute some tax planning. All right, so we just talked about 2 celebrities who did not have estate plans, and when you don't have an estate plan, of course, like, things can, kind of go wrong. So what does it look like when a celebrity has an estate plan? And does that mean that because you have an estate plan that everything is gonna work out fine? So let's look at Robin Williams. So Robin Williams created an estate plan. He had children from a prior marriage. And so he wanted to make sure, do the responsible thing and make sure that his children from the prior marriage were fine and that they were going to benefit from his estate. So he created an estate plan. But what he did was he listed that his children could get all his tangible personal property when he died, but that his wife can continue to remain in the home for her lifetime. And so he did not put any language in there that said that distribution of the tangible personal property to his children were to occur after his wife passed away. So guess what the kids did? After he died, they started to demand their inheritances from stepmom. And so she, and of course, ended up having to go to court and try to get instructions on how to handle that. I also had a client, true story, so not celebrity, but true story. I actually had a client having a very similar estate plan where, hey Sarah, his wife had her separate estate plan and indicated that her kids should get her tangible personal property. And of course, there was no stipulation in there as to when that was to happen. So the kids ended up being like, okay, mom's dead, we want our stuff now. And we were talking about things that were in the home. And so he ended up settling with the kids and paying them off early to avoid having to like sell the stuff in the house or give all the stuff in the house to them. So what would we do in a situation like that? Careful planning, making sure that we put a timeline of when a distribution is supposed to happen. Is it supposed to happen at the first death, at the second death? At whose death is this distribution supposed to happen? We want to make sure that we're being very clear, especially when you're talking about tangible personal property. You want to be very clear that of when you're expecting that to happen. If there's any special things that you want to give, you want to make sure that you're listing that. So that's what I would have done if I was helping, is to make sure that we are removing any ambiguities that occurred in a situation like that. All right, so we are done squeezing citrus in here. And next I'm going to add sugar, and I'm just using granulated sugar in there. And so for you guys who just jumped in, we're making squash, which is a St. Lucian, like limeade, essentially, or lemonade for you Americans. All right, so you put enough sugar to your taste. All right, so we just talked about Robin Williams, and now let's talk about Kobe Bryant. So Kobe was conscientious and created an estate plan. His plan was created in 2007, and what he did was he updated it, periodically as he had new kids. He updated his estate plan to account for his kids. But what he did was he separated the final iteration of his estate plan was where his wife got a portion of the estate, and the rest of the estate was to be divided between his 2 children who they named in the estate plan. And then they ended up having a baby who was 9 months old when Kobe passed away. So he had not had time to update his estate plan, and he did not have any language in there allowing for any afterborn children. So his wife had to go to court to petition the court to add the 9-month-old to the estate plan so that she could inherit from her dad's estate. You know, of course, knowing that that would have been what Kobe would have wanted. So how do you avoid something like that? It's actually pretty simple. When you create an estate plan, even if you're gonna name the beneficiaries in there, because we talked about the fact that if you don't name beneficiaries, then it opens up the door for unnamed children or heirs to come in and ask for their share. So what he could have done was, in the drafting of the distribution provision, making sure that he added language that stipulated that if there were any afterborn children, that those afterborn children were to inherit from the estate equally as the surviving children. Doing that adds flexibility to your estate, and it also allows for a situation like this where, based on the history of Kobe and amending his estate, he was a very conscientious person. He would have gotten to it at some point, but he passed away before he was able to amend his estate. So putting language in there that accounts for those kind of situations helps to make sure that you add flexibility to an estate and take into account the changes in your life. So a lot of people create estate plans, they pop them onto the shelf and they let them sit there and collect dust. I actually have one coming in. Talk to the client. His estate plan was created in 1977. Do you know how much the world and his life and the law has changed from 1977 to now? And so we don't want to be the guy who has the 40-some-year-old estate plan. If you guys have an estate plan, update it. And if you don't have one, you want to create one. We admire celebrities. We follow everything that they do. We have a very obsessed culture with celebrities. So in the vein of that, learn from those celebrities. Get an estate plan if you don't have one. Get your estate plan updated if you have one, so that your estate plan is reflecting your wishes and that your life is organized. The people who you want to inherit your estate. The things you want to have happen actually happen when you are no longer here to make sure it happens. And we're gonna put our last ingredient. Check this out. I did all 4 celebrities in the time it took me to make this drink. And so we're gonna finish it off here by putting in about a teaspoon of vanilla. I've made this and had my kids taste it without the vanilla in there, and they were not impressed. And then we add the vanilla and they were like, ooh, this is so good. And this is it. This is your squash, water, citrus of your choice, sugar, and vanilla. You pop that. I'm pulling out my Easter glass because it is a tall boy, and just like, you know, it's better for, just like, you know, makes things look better. So got my Easter glass here. You pour your drink in here, and today with your estate plan advice, St. Lucian squash. Does anyone have any questions? I'm just gonna, like, you know, hang out here for a bit. So if you have no questions, or if there's any questions that you have that you want me to address on our Rum Shop Talks, I invite you to share it with me in the comments below, or you can email me your questions. I love the opportunity to educate you guys. Thank you so much for giving me a couple of minutes of your Friday, and cheers! See you next week for another episode of Rum Shop Talks.